Hi Mum! You do everything for everyone else. Let me help you make your life easier. Quick, short information to make you empowered and remind you why you are so important. Because if you don't know what's on the menu, how can you choose what's right for you? Hi, I'm Alina, Director of my private practice Supportive Therapy, an everyday Aussie mum trying not to lose my biscuits at my kids. As a mental health professional, I'm here to share my secrets so no other mother feels alone or powerless. Knowledge is power, and I want you to be powerful. Think of it like I'm your mindset coach through all of this. Everything's backed by science and psychology. I believe in you, and I want you to be the best version of yourself. To be happy and to feel in control, you need to be mentally strong. Hello everyone, my name is Alina Bishop and this is my little podcast, Mentally Strong Mums. Today I'm so excited. We have a beautiful guest, Blue, and she's from America and she is a relationship, intimacy and sex therapist. So especially for all our mums out there, sometimes it can be very difficult after we've had children. Obviously, things get chaotic, things get busy. Sometimes it feels like the children are always at the top of the totem pole in terms of hierarchy and our relationship comes second. And the next thing you know, we're 10 years down the track and we've kind of started to drift apart. Or even after we've had babies, when they're still little terrible twos or little three-nagers, we are so exhausted that sometimes we can't, and our bodies have changed, especially with mothers. It can be very difficult to be able to then feel good in my body to be able to even be open for intimacy. So at least with Blue today, it's going to be amazing because she always gives you the best relationship, dating and intimacy tips. And especially for those, if we do those mothers who are single mothers, she's also a really good resource for everyone as well. And then understanding how to get the spark back into your life. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, Alina. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay! No, it will be wonderful. So before we begin, could you have a little introduction and let us know more about you?
Sure. Yeah. So like you said, I'm a relationship, sex, and intimacy therapist. I'm over here in the United States, Washington State, specifically near the Seattle area. And I have a private practice where I see clients for sex therapy, and that's all online. I work with couples and individuals. Oh, I should mention I'm only allowed to do therapy with folks who live in the state of Washington.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, we can come back to that. I am a registered sex therapist, so under ASECT, which is AASECT. That's kind of like the board that governs sex therapists globally.
Yes. So exciting because at least now you know with Skye, everything that she has, all of her information and knowledge, she's registered, educated, qualified, and at least it's the best information that you can kind of get.
No, thank you.
Yay. So we were discussing previously about how to best support mums through sex and intimacy. So Blue's going to let us know, especially just for this episode, the basics of sex and intimacy. So at least this can kind of help you understand the foundations of it, what your options are, and how to be able to even have a new perception or perspective about what intimacy is. And I think the first one we were going to explore was the lineal model.
Yes.
So for everyone that doesn't know, in terms of sex and intimacy, the linear model, what does that mean?
Yeah, so let me explain. The linear model, you might also have heard of like the staircase or the escalator model. And it's this very typical way that folks think about sex should look like, or we've been taught. this is what sex should look like. So I thought I'd just draw. I like visuals. It helps me understand. So it's like we've been taught that sex, especially in heterosexual relationships where there's a man and a woman, that sex, it'll start down here, probably with like a look or a touch, like some sort of sign that it's time for sex.
Yep.
And then it kind of has this like natural progression. So from the sign to maybe a little bit more physical touch, maybe some kissing, the clothes might come off, you get naked. That might to something like oral sex. And then the model, you get to the top, and the expectation in this model is that you would end in what we call PIV, which is penis and vagina penetrative sex. And the end goal there would be to orgasm, and then maybe you fall asleep. That would be the model.
And I think that is the traditional model that the majority of us are kind of familiar with, that basic dance of how it escalates, the kiss leads to this leads to that leads to this, and this is the expectation of hopefully one, or even lucky enough to have both, being able to orgasm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a very typical way folks think about sex.
So now we want to have a quick look at the circular model.
Yeah, so I do want to say that there's nothing wrong with the linear model. A lot of people do that and they enjoy that. The issue with the linear model is that it can be a little bit rigid. If that's the only way we think about sex. For example, what if, the woman or person with the vulva gets pain? Or if the person with the penis or the man can't get an erection or doesn't last long, right? So if the goal is the penis and vagina penetration and it's not happening for whatever reason, a lot of people might feel anxious, or they might think they failed or the sex was bad.
Yeah.
And so if we can think about sex in a different way, not as rigid, we can maybe feel less anxious about it and find a lot of different fun, pleasurable ways to have sex.
I love that you can mention that, because I think if that's all that we know is the traditional model, which is the linear model of sex or penetration, and I feel like that's all I have. That's all I have in my toolbox, or that's all that I know, or that's all that my partner knows. And if my expectations aren't met a lot of the time, if I have pain, or if he can't get hard, or if he can't last, then it's that predictability and control about next time that this happens. We're not excited about it. It's doomed to fail before it's begun. And we're kind of trapped in this cycle of, well, that's the only option that we have. And if we can't do it, then it gives me anxiety, wants me to avoid, and it loses that intimate connection with our partner.
I love the way you explain that. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So there's a different type of way we can think about what sex looks like. And I call that the circular model, or the Ferris wheel model.
Yay!
And I'll draw that for you as well, because it looks a little bit different. And again, this isn't to demonize the other way of thinking about sex. This is just to offer a different perspective. So it's a circle with lots of different little options. So if we can think about sex a little bit more freely, meaning sex could be anything you want it to be. It could be any type of fun sexual activity. And that might look something like this.
Yeah. And for those that
So,
can't see, it's a circle with little circles around it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little circles, like if you were looking at a Ferris wheel or one of those, the Brisbane Eye or the London Eye, and how that actually looks, because the little options, the circles that you've drawn, is like the little carriages.
yes, exactly. That's the metaphor.
Yeah.
And I put 7. It could be more or less, but sorry, I have some cat hair in my mouth. So the little carriages, the little circles, those just represent different types of things that you can do, and it can be anything you want. It could be, so for example, like maybe I'm not up for penis and vagina penetration, but I would love to make out with my partner and take a sexy shower.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. Or what if we did sensual massages and we played with some toys?
Ooh, that sounds fun too.
Mm-hmm. You can see how you're like, it's just you're opening up your mind to thinking about what would be fun and what would be pleasurable.
No, that sounds amazing. And I like that because I can understand the difference now, because it completely takes the pressure off. It's not that goal orientated just to be able to orgasm. That's not the goal. The goal is a circular model of what's on the menu today. What do we feel like? What time do we have? How can we connect? And both parties having an input and a say as to how we can connect.
I love how you just described that. That's perfect. Yeah. And that's, I'm also wanting to clarify that orgasms, they can still be on that Ferris wheel. You know, we can play with toys and have orgasms, or we can play with toys and just play and not focus on orgasm if we don't want to. Like you said, it takes some of the pressure off.
No, I love that, because I think sometimes when we feel like, especially either from a male's perspective, it's my job to make her orgasm. And when she doesn't, sometimes the man or the masculine can feel like a failure because I haven't provided that to her in some way. And then it either leads to anxiety, or it leads to then the woman feeling bad and guilty, and then her wanting to fake an orgasm to make him happy, even when she's not down for that or not feeling it. So at least this circular model, there's a understanding that it's not always about the end goal, which is orgasming. It's about the connection and playful and spontaneous and whatever that looks like. And even as simple as just having a shower together, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, we're all a product of our system, the system we grow up in our family, our towns, our countries. And there's a pretty pervasive message, correct me if I'm wrong, but that sex is about penis and vagina penetration and orgasm. And like I said, that's not always the case. That's not always going to happen. So what we would rather focus on is connection and pleasure.
Yeah.
Connection and pleasure. Just take the pressure off of everybody.
And I think for humans, that's the basis of happiness. Every human needs pleasure and every human seeks connection. And if you can do that in an authentic way so that both parties have reduced anxiety, it builds their connection, it builds their pleasure, then it actually gives us something to look forward to, as opposed to that linear traditional model of P&V penetration. Oh, I haven't made you come. Oh, he's only lasted 10 minutes. Oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Just get it over and done with. At least this helps us connect and be there for each other to be able to play and explore and grow. And those two fundamentals, humans need connection and humans need pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think when we can give ourselves the freedom and like allow ourselves to explore that with a partner,
Mm.
It's so much more fun and connective.
Yes. And who doesn't love fun? Do you know? We all want fun and we all want to connect. And especially the feminine is that spontaneous, wants that fun. Do you know?
Yeah, and sex should be fun.
Yes.
You know, it's a form of play,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Awesome.
It makes us feel good.
No, I love it. So we were also discussing previously, especially I work with clients who have predominantly with trauma, betrayal trauma, sometimes even DV relationships. Sometimes they have narcissists, and sometimes it's me helping a woman understand her body, understand her voice. So I think for this next section, we were going to explore consent, and especially if you are married, consent within romantic and sexual relationships. So especially as you, as the sex and intimacy therapist, could you please let us know from your perspective about consent within a romantic sexual relationship, and what does that look like?
Yes. So, in my experience, consent is like a foundational pillar to a healthy sexuality within ourselves and within relationships. And unfortunately, for most parts of the world, correct me if I'm wrong if this is different in Australia, but at least in the United States, we don't teach consent in our sex education programs. There's like not much talk around that. So people grow up not understanding that they have the right to say no to touch, to any sort of attention, especially women. A lot of women grow up thinking that, you know, our job as women is to give our body and please our man. That's a pretty common thing that I hear from clients. And I think that it's also a disservice to men. They're also a product of their system, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of men and boys don't learn that they don't have entitlement over women's bodies. And so I'm not saying that all men are like monsters and they just want to take and touch all the time, but I think that it can happen unintentionally or intentionally, like in the case of your clients.
And I love that, because that, from what I'm hearing, is a compassionate and empathetic perspective as to sometimes why it can be difficult for women to speak their voice and to have consent. And sometimes men, if they haven't been educated, taught, or even understanding, and exactly as you said, they don't have the right to a woman's body. Do you know? And I think that kind of helps, especially if parents have children themselves, gives a different perspective of potentially having uncomfortable, difficult conversations, because really it benefits everyone in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think these conversations can start very young. I think that parents can practice consent with their children. You know, for example, back when I was young, when I saw Grandma and Grandpa, like, I had to give Grandma and Grandpa a hug. Not expectful.
Yeah.
But maybe there was a time where I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to get touched for whatever reason. But I wasn't allowed to say no. So I think that we can give that gift to our kids. And you can ask them, like, would you like a hug? Would you like a high five? Is it okay if I touch you? And they get to choose what they want, and you're teaching them really early on that they have a voice.
Yeah.
That they they get to choose whether or not they want to be touched, and that
Yeah.
they can say it.
Mm. And I love that so much. It's that little shift in communicating to your children, as opposed to go and give them a cuddle or go and give them a hug. And then that little shift is, would you like to go and give them a hug? And if they say no, well, that's fine. Would you like to give them a high five? Would you like to give them a fist pump or something like that? And at least you're completely correct. It doesn't have to be a really huge, obvious thing that will divide families. It's the little things. Well, what would you like to do? And it actually, in the long term, comes to consent about my body, my permission, my voice. And then especially if we're in those romantic relationships and I feel an obligation, and that's sometimes with women, which I find sometimes for women it can be dangerous to say no, whether the punishments are real or even if they're perceived. So especially if we've had a lifetime of knowing that it can be dangerous to say no, because even if the punishments are perceived, they're going to be upset at me or cranky with me, or I'm going to pay for that later, or they're going to be passive aggressive, then maybe sometimes it's just easier. But if you've had these conversations earlier, then perhaps if you're brave enough to have that with your partner before the things come to a head, and then it's a blow up beforehand, and then he feels rejected and I'm then abandoned, do you know?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, this is a very complicated, nuanced topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're totally right that if we can empower children very early on to be able to voice their wants and desires around their body, and you're modeling for them what it's like so if you're the parent and you're saying, do you want a hug? And the child says no. As a parent, you get to model how to react to that no. You can say, okay, that's okay, maybe later.
Yes.
You like, "Ooh," and they'll have a big reaction and be really upset. And that's an emotional punishment to the child for saying no.
Yes.
Very, very different interactions.
Yes. No, you're completely correct. And I love it that you're able to reframe that back onto the parent to say, even if you did that and offered them the choice and they didn't have the choice that you wanted them to do, and you didn't react well to it, it's then an accidental form of manipulation for them to do something that they literally told you, I don't want to. But your reaction was then an accidental manipulation to getting what you wanted.
Right. Yeah. And then the kids are carrying all of those messages into their adulthoods and into their romantic relationships.
Yes. Yes. Huge. So another one as well with my mums, especially that have young children, have touch fatigue. And touch fatigue, if those mums are listening and haven't heard, it's almost a feeling of you're so touched out that the child or the children or the animals sometimes have been on my skin and on my body all day, that by the time it gets to 6 p.m, I'm overstimulated and I'm touched out, so that I don't have autonomy anymore. I don't have my own body. And then obviously if that's the time when hubby wants to try and connect, it can feel very difficult. So from your perspective, how can you give us your insights about touch fatigue and romantic relationships?
Well, I feel a lot of compassion for moms who experience this touch fatigue. Like, it's exhausting. It's very draining. They're giving so much of themselves to others all the time. So I hear this from clients, and it's kind of like this lack of agency or in their own body. And so when the husband wants to touch and be intimate, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just one more thing. I can't deal with this right now. So typically, what I recommend is like finding time to reconnect with yourself and your own body,
Mm,
like making that a priority.
yes.
Like you have to carve out time for yourself, for your own mind, body, and spirit.
Mm,
And that gets to look like whatever you want it to,
mm,
but just something that's really fulfilling to you. Like maybe that's going to a yoga class, maybe that's taking a bubble bath at the end of your day. Um, does that make sense to you?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think in terms of my perspective and the therapy that I do, that's essentially, it's almost regulating yourself or regrounding yourself, doing little things for yourself in that moment to be able to reduce the long-term impacts of that touch fatigue, which can then sometimes lead to isolation or a feeling of constant rejection from your partner.
Mhm.
And it's nice, I think, because a lot of mothers feels obviously mum guilt for a reason. And if exactly as what you were saying, there's one more thing that I can't do. And if my partner is looking to connect, and even if it's not sex, they just want to connect with intimacy or a cuddle, but I'm so touched out with touch fatigue, I can't do that, then it's a disconnect for both parties because we're both alone and we both don't feel good enough and we both feel a negative consequence. Especially when we have young children, it's meant to be one of the happiest times of our life, because isn't that what we're meant to do? Get married and have kids and everything's all roses, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. So I think between the partners, it's the solution starts with a very open, honest conversation about like needs and desires. So if mom's feeling touch fatigue,
Yeah.
have that open, honest conversation with her partner about that experience. And hopefully he can show up in that conversation openly and curiously because he wants to support her in this. Knowing that figuring out how to help her with this is going to help him too.
Yes.
Because if she can find time for herself to tend to her own mind, body, spirit, the hope is that she's going to have more resources to spend with him as well. So this is a win-win.
Yes. And you're completely correct. It's understanding the bigger picture that this is a partnership. And if we want to be together forever, if we've got married and these are the vows we've taken, this is a difficult time in my life. And how can we connect in other ways that makes us both safe, that makes us both feel valid? And especially what you just said is having a mature conversation to be able to articulate our needs and wants and desires. And I always say with my clients, it should be done every tax time, once a year, because sometimes you're not the same person you were last year. Sometimes things have changed and happened. But if the other person isn't aware of these changes, they still think they're trying to connect with the old version when we grow and evolve all the time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think at least once a year minimum, like ideally even more than that.
Yes. No, I completely agree. And it's always interesting to me the amount of couples that don't take the time to do that. And even when I say once a year, they're like, oh, once a year, sit in, figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
And so I think just before we go, I think you had a really cute little non-demand touch exercise for all of our listeners today.
Yeah. So, this idea, this non-demand touch, this is referring to physical touch in the relationship that has no pressure or expectation for sex. So it could be, little kisses throughout the day, hugs, cuddles, back massages, whatever types of little touches you like, but there is no expectation or pressure that they will lead to sex. A lot of couples over the years, they stop touching. And sometimes they only touch if there's going to be sex happening. And that creates a lot of negative connotation for a lot of times the woman. And she'll start avoiding the touch because she's like, oh, he's touching me. He wants sex. So there is a disconnect there. So
Now,
go ahead.
oh no, I love it. And I think that's the interesting thing, exactly what you say. Sometimes we get so busy with life and there is an emotional disconnect, and then there is a physical disconnect, and we've realized that I've been with you all week and I haven't actually touched you in any way, unless it's, Saturday night and we're ready to. But this whole week there's been no connection and no touch, and it's an interesting perspective that you have with that, because humans, we need touch and connection.
Yeah, we can get touch starved. We
Touch starved.
We feel lonely and isolated in the relationship because we're not connecting on the day-to-day. So I recommend people touch each other every day. Hug and kiss when you say goodbye and hello when you come home. Request specifically what you want. I really want to cuddle in bed tonight. I really want to take a sensual shower and just hold each other. Ask for the things you want in terms of touch, and not put any pressure or expectation on those things for sex.
No, I think that's amazing. And I like, even though they were talking about touch fatigue earlier, and that's what you just mentioned then, being touch starved. And I don't know if that's a concept that a lot of people are familiar with. And so at least if you can put a word on it that can help articulate how I'm feeling, then it just builds that connection and that vulnerability and that honesty with each other.
Yeah, touch is a form of connection and intimacy, and if we don't have it, we can really miss it.
Yeah. Non-demand touch game. And that's really good just to start with, because the non-demand touch game, it's no expectations for it to lead to sex. It's just reconnecting, and it's a non-demand touch game. How many times can we actually connect during the day when we see each other?
Or I could give you something more specific. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you two different examples. So the first example would be sitting on the couch together and holding hands and telling each other how you'd like to cuddle, how you want to hold hands.
Ooh.
I really want to put my leg over you. I really want to just touch your hair. Is that okay? So you're also using consent. You're saying, this is what I would like. Is that okay with you? And so you're cuddling together on the couch, talking about how you want to receive and give touch. And there's no pressure for sex. So that's one way you could do it.
Yep.
The other way you could do it is something very, very similar, but it's in the shower.
Yes.
You're taking a shower together, and you're, washing each other's bodies, but you're also communicating a lot. Is it okay if I rub your back? Can I wash your hair? Can I touch you here? I'd like to touch you there. Is that okay with you? You're using a lot of consent. Again, there's no pressure for sex. If either people feel aroused, that's totally fine. Just don't, push for more.
I love that with this game and both of those specific examples, you also reinforced and illustrated about using consent, because I think even though we've been together for 10 years, I think it should be a given. But when someone asks, can I touch your hair or can I rub your back? And ask that, actually using those words gives me evidence of safety, and it gives me evidence of respect. And humans, we need all of the evidence, because if we don't see things, we just assume things. And at least if it reinforces they are my safety, they are here to protect me, they're not going to take advantage of me. And when I say, no, I don't, my hair is gross and greasy, you can't touch it, and they go, okay, I won't do that. That then increases all kinds of safety, respect, and intimacy within the relationship, and not taking each other for granted.
Absolutely. Yes. Creating safety and respect is so key. And then again, like you said, the person who's receiving no, or I don't want that right now, the way that you react to that is so important.
Yes.
Because if you have a negative reaction, that comes off as a punishment, and then your partner is going to be less honest with you.
Yes.
And that's just not a good thing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And sometimes those negative things look like a little tantrum, can look like sulking. It's like they revert back to their childhood tantrum stages. And it's very difficult, because if I know that's what you're going to do, it's just easier to give in. But that then doesn't make an honest, transparent relationship. And if we can even if we've been together for 15 years, restart doing all of these games and exercises and relearning each other, and even listening to this podcast together.
Absolutely. Yeah. So by not having that negative reaction, sulking, or, saying like, oh, stomping away, you're providing your partner with more safety, which is going to tell them, I'm not going to be pressured if I say no.
I think oh no, sorry, go.
If you can do that more and more, you're probably going to get even more intimacy in the relationship, because there's no pressure.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say too. I think more safety equals more intimacy.
100%.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Maybe that can be the motto for today's podcast. More safety is more intimacy. And how can we get safety on both parts? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. I love that. Great.
Yes. I have thoroughly enjoyed today's podcast with you. I've learned so much, and I feel it's been so beneficial, hopefully, to all of our listeners. And I would, if everyone's loved Blue and enjoyed what she's had to offer, if you could please, Blue, let us know what your socials are and how can we find you.
So I have an Instagram and a TikTok, and it's Intimacy with Blue on both.
And it's spelled BLU. So intimacy, INTIMACE with BLU.
That is correct. Yep. And my full name is SkyeBlu Cutchie. So if you see that, that's my name. Yay! Yeah. Yeah. Follow me on social media. I have a free intimacy guide that you can sign up for if you want some more in-depth tips. And I'm also working on a few intimacy courses right now.
Yay! So at least everyone loves a freebie. The price is always right. So imagine, have a look and search for Intimacy with Blue, and then have a look at her freebie. And if you enjoyed her freebie and everything she has today, please sign up for her course waitlist. And then at least when it's done, you will be notified, and then you can grow. If you've ever wanted a sex and intimacy coach or a sex therapist, she's definitely the person to be able to go to understand everything. So we are very grateful for you today, and thank you so much for all of your knowledge and expertise.
Oh, thank you so much. I had a lot of fun chatting with you. I appreciate it.
No, wonderful. Thank you so much, and we'll speak with you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. if you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you for your support. It takes me hours to research and create this for you, so I genuinely hope you enjoyed it and felt more mentally strong. If you have any suggestions or improvements, let me know, because I'm always open for criticisms. If you have found my information useful, please leave a review and subscribe. So by leaving a review, it's a value exchange, good karma. I value your support just as much as you value my free information. So find me on Instagram and Facebook by searching Mentally Strong Mums, and I'm Aussie, so it's spelled MUM. And then you can find heaps of resources on www.mentallystrongmums.com. And this podcast is for you, so let me know what topics you would like to see covered in future episodes. And if yourself is a professional that is working with mums and would like to be a guest to help other mums be mentally strong, I would love to support you. So message me on Instagram on Mentally Strong Mums, MUMS, all one word. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day, you beautiful mum.